Welcome SPHL fans to another video here. I got a guest with me, returning guest, Zach Starry, one of my favorite people to have on the video. And we're kind of going to go over the playoffs. Havoc number 2 team, Riverman number 1. Figured, we get another perspective when it comes to these playoffs and the first round meetings and, some matchups going on. Obviously, we're kind of going to focus a little bit more probably on Riverman and the Havoc matchups than the others, but we will touch on the others a little bit. And, just want to mention the two teams that didn't make it. A little shout out to them. Pensacola Ice Flyers making mayhem. Unfortunately, this was not their year to participate in the playoffs. Kind of expected that from Ice Flyers. That's something I predicted before the season even started and said they were likely to finish last, and that's exactly what happened. With the other, I thought it would be either Macon, Thunderbolts, or Quad Cities, the usual suspects. I thought maybe Thunderbolts might miss the playoffs, and I was trying to give Macon that push, like this is the year maybe they get over the hump and finally get that 8th seed, but they had a decent roster, looked good at times, but just didn't have it at the end, and they ended up finishing out in the first round here, going by seeds and stuff. Of course, you got the Storm at Riverman, Storm number 1 seed overall, home ice throughout the entire playoffs. Storm an 8th seed. You got the Knoxville Ice Bears, 6th seed, going up against the 3rd seed Roanoke Rail Yard Dogs. 5th seed Marksman, 4th seed Birmingham Bulls. And then, of course, you got the 7th seed Thunderbolts and the 2nd seed Huntsville Havoc. We're kind of, since you're my guest, we're kind of going to touch on the Havoc. I kind of came out with the playoff video before me and you got a chance to talk. And obviously, I have the Havoc moving on past the Bulls. I hate calling upsets or not upsets, sweeps, if I can talk, sweeps in the first round. But if I was a betting man, my money would go there for most likely to be swept Thunderbolts, which is no disrespect to their fans. I'm not trying to trash talk here. I'm just being honest. And, you look up and down the lineups, roster depth, scoring depth, defense, goaltending, coaching. Havoc just kind of have the advantage everywhere, including home ice advantage. What are your thoughts on that first round matchup, Zach?
Uh, I mean, it's the best matchup I think we could have got. We played them how many times didn't, but we didn't lose one game to them. The last game got a little close. Um, uh, they did play the Bulls really well coming into the last weekend, and I think what's in everybody's mind here in Huntsville was we watched the Bulls win game one last year in Evansville, and then come back and couldn't win a single game at home, and helped pave the easy road for the Rivermen last year. So um, something that you don't want to do is just get over too overconfident, and it's easy to do as a fan to get out there like, oh, this is going to be a sweep, but remember the game's played on the ice and anything can happen. That being said, I don't think the Havoc should have a problem with them, especially getting the first game at home. Um, I think that's huge. It's in the loudest arena that I think you could ever play a playoff game in. Last year, those games were very intense. This year, I think they're going to be even louder. And then, we're facing a 7 seed this year. Last year, we faced the 4 seed in that rink and then faced the 3 seed. So I think you can definitely shake a 7 seed, really hard in that arena. So I don't feel like it's going to be super easy, but I think the Havoc should get the sweep on that one.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on that. Like you kind of brought up last year in the first round, to Thunderbolts' credit, they did bounce the Bulls, who were the number 1 seed at that time. Thunderbolts went on to the second round and got swept out of the second round by the Rivermen. So, I mean, it's kind of like for lack of a better term, they blew their wad in that first round on the Bulls because they, especially that first game in Evansville, pretty much Riverman dominated them the whole game, and they looked exhausted mentally and physically. So you could tell that first was taxing on them. But honestly, yeah, that was last year. This is this year. Feel like this is a harder draw for Bolts than even the Bulls were last year. In my opinion, Bolts are playing again more like an 8 seed than a 7 seed because I would even argue to the point the Storm's playing better hockey than Thunderbolts are. But, that's up for debate. I mean, they're both where they are and it is what it is. You earn your spot through the season. But, I wouldn't call it a controversy per se. But I get the feeling that Havoc is kind of split with the goaltenders between Mike Robb, Brian Wilson, both awesome goalies. I mean, make no mistake, both awesome goalies. More than capable of getting wins in the playoffs. Um, do you think there's something like maybe they could split some playoff games? Do you think they're going to go with Mike Robb? Do you think they give Brian Wilson a shot? What's your opinion on the goaltender situation?
Whoever they pick, I hope they ride them. I don't play the every other game thing. Let a goalie get the flow. Last year we saw they went with Mike. He came back from I think it was overseas. He was with the AHL. Somehow wound up overseas and then wound up coming back to us and played great going down the stretch. I think he got like 2 or 3 shutouts in his final 4 or 5 games. Was the hot choice. Played really well against Fayetteville. He played really well against Roanoke. Just had that one slip up in game 2. Um, so I think they made the right call. Not that Brian should have got overlooked, but they saw something in Mike. They got it right. He played well in game 1 of the championship game. Both goalies kind of played really bad in game 2. So that was, a tall by the thing that really impressed me about Mike was after that third goal went in, um, they must have asked, "Are you wanting to come off?" And he shook him off, and he didn't let another goal in the rest of the game. The other goals that went in were the empty net goals at the end. So he's definitely a big game goalie. I think he played really well this year. And when Brian got called up, Mike held that net down and kept us in that 2 seed, or kept us really in the 1 seed. And it wasn't until Brian came back that we finally relinquished that top spot. But I mean, that's big. You can't really overlook that. So it's hard. Do I bypass him? Do I go with Brian this year, which is coming into the same situation Mike came into last year? He come back from, another league, comes in, he's got 2 shutouts in his last 3 starts. Really only had the one bad game. Played really well, gave us that chance to come back against Birmingham, and that bad that happened. Um, so, do you ride the hot hand of Brian coming in like you did with Mike last year? Um, I don't know. I personally, I would go with Brian this year, and it's no offense to Mike at all. If they go with Mike, I'm just as happy. But Brian did really well in the ECHL. He came back and he's put our only 2 shutouts on the board. So I mean, I would go with him to start. I don't think the first round you could pick a wrong goalie. I think both are going to shut it down. Second round, I would expect we're going to get Roanoke. And that's where I think I would rather play Brian than Mike. Roanoke's seen a lot of Mike. That goes into a lot of video study. Now everyone's got a video coach. So I think I would rather, if it was my decision, I would go Brian. But, that's the fun of being a fan is it's my job to support whoever's in net. So that's my ultimate decision there on who I'd pick.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I basically agree with everything you said. I think I've gone on the record multiple times publicly saying, both these guys are legit number 1 guys and can hold the net down. When I pick one over the other, kind of like what you said, it's no disrespect to the other guy because he's just as capable in my opinion. I do think Brian Wilson's a legit number 1. I would probably go with him. He seems a bit more poised and He doesn't let really a lot bother him. You never really see Brian Wilson like rattled or frustrated. You kind of seen glimpses of that, in my opinion, with Mike Robb from time to time, but with Wilson, he shakes off whatever happened so quickly, like it almost didn't happen, and he's right back in the game, which is a characteristic you want in your goalie, in my opinion, obviously. So yeah, I would probably go with Wilson too, but is that something that you see too? Like maybe something a little bit that he has over Mike Robb is maybe that poise and
Yeah, that and just mainly just the hot hand. I would go with. He's been great since coming back, and we talked about it earlier. Is the Havoc have a really bad good problem. I mean, we've got an AHL goalie and an ECHL goalie on our roster. They split time throughout the year. And when one came back, it wasn't, hey, this is his net. You got to earn your way back. Peoria's got two great goalies, but that's Kobe's net. And everyone knows it. Nick's not going to start. I don't think, even if Kobe has one bad game, you have a goalie controversy at all there, even with the fans. We know Evansville. It's that season. Um, you know, Same with Quad Cities. They got one goalie. Probably the only other team in the league that has a similar problem is Birmingham. But I think that's an easy pick this year. Lots has locked it up, and while Stewart is a good, viable pick, this is Lots' year, and I don't think even if he has one bad game, you pull him and start Stewart. Really, the Huntsville has that only controversy in net. But the great thing about both these guys is I've seen them; they support each other no matter what. I mean, it would have been easy last year for Brian to be upset and say, "I'm not coming back. This was my net all year," and then Mike comes out of nowhere and he steals it from me. This was my time, and then this year Brian comes back and they start splitting again, and it's been easy for Mike to say, "Hey, wait a minute, I've been here all year while he's been gone." Those two don't. They support each other very well. Happy with each other. Not one person thinks less of the other goalie. That game against Birmingham, I think, was proof. Mike knew that he just didn't have it that night, and he gave Brian a chance to come in and lock it up. I don't think you do that if you don't have respect for your backup goaltender. And I really, that's calling one a backup goaltender it almost feels demeaning in Huntsville because they're both starters. I mean,
yeah,
no matter who we got in net, we're happy. It's no longer the years where it's like, oh, Max is sitting. Oh, I hope we win tonight. We went through that this year when Mike needed a day off because they were overplaying him, and we put the backup in, whether it was Taylor or um, Colburn or whoever else was we had. It was like, oh man, we're gonna lose tonight, and um, none of us ever feel that way in the stands. We're excited on whoever starts. So
yeah. Yeah, I definitely tend to agree with that. And like I said, I think that's a credit to the team chemistry and the way Havoc coached, the way they're ready together, the way they mesh together. I do think that's a credit to Havoc, which again is why they're going to be such a threat in the playoffs. I know they kind of faltered down the stretch a touch. Like what you said, ended up relinquishing first place. Riverman kind of took that spot over, but at the end of the day, like Havoc is a playoff team. Like they are built for the playoffs, and like you got to be playing your best hockey, period, to even have a chance at winning a game, let alone a series. So it's a tough matchup. No matter who faces up with the Havoc, out of all these 8 teams, it's going to be a tough matchup. You're going to have to earn your victory. That's for sure. And like I said, I too many issues coming from the Thunderbolt side of things. Like I said, I fully expect Havoc to move on, if not sweep them. Um, I know you're hesitant to say that, and I don't blame you. It's the same reason I would be hesitant to say Rivermen are sweeping Storm. You just don't want to put it out there per se. But me, considering I'm not exactly a Havoc fan, neutral party, I could easily see a Havoc sweep. But
well,
moving on to our second game here, real quick. We got Storm at Riverman. Now, this is an interesting game. The interesting series, period. Yes, Storm's 8th seed. Yes, we won the season series, but Storm have been playing competitively, especially since they've gotten the college kids. Now, when the college kids came, Storm, they got a little better. Not gonna lie, they were a little more competitive, and it makes for an interesting matchup again. Riverman with home ice, and the way this is set up is just like Huntsville and Bolts, where the first game's in Peoria, second game's in Quad City, is the last game. So we got the first and last game. So if we win the first game, no matter what happens in Quad Cities, we'll end up coming back to Peoria, which is why that first game's important in Peoria. And same with Huntsville. That's why that first game in a 3-game series, you want to get the W. It doesn't guarantee you a series win, but it sure to hell helps a lot to get that first win. Um,
Unless
kind
you're
of like
Birmingham.
kind of like what you said. No, it's no goalie controversy. We have faith in both goalies. Don't get me wrong. Latinovich has been there and he's won President's Cup with us. But like you said, it's Colby Muse's net. Got some injuries heading in with Zach Wilkie and Mike McChesney being the top two that are down, and then you got Tristan Trudell and Adelia Danier also on the IR that could be inserted back in the lineup. Uh, Hopefully we can get Wilkie back and McChesney back at some point in the playoffs. I know I've talked to Wilkie and he's hoping to get back in the second round, which would be flat out amazing. But I'm still confident in the roster we have. We got one of the best coaches in the league. His record proves that. But this will be a tough matchup. I mean, Leaf Madsen is an MVP candidate. Brett Moran has been strong at net. Um, like I said, where I think Riverman got the advantage besides home ice is team defense and special teams. I think that is a key component to this matchup. I can see this going 3 games, but I do see Riverman moving on ultimately. What's your take on this matchup between Riverman and Storm?
This is the same reverse thought you have about the Havoc. You're superstitious to take them in a sweep. Everybody in this league knows it's going to be a first round sweep. I've seen a couple of fans on yours in the SPHL talking about how this is going to be a hard series. Well, this is not going to be a hard series. This is going to probably be 2 7-1 games, finishes, especially starting out in Peoria. That's a very, very tough building to play in. The fans are very loud and energetic in that building. The players feed off of that. I know it's a rivalry, it's close, all that stuff, but this is a Bulls Havoc rivalry. This is the O'Shea brothers from Little Giants. I mean, you got Rick Moranis up there in Quad Cities. They're a good team. They got great fans. They are not going to beat Peoria. Everyone thought maybe they were going to try and beat you guys and move up the standings in the final weekend, and they looked like hot garbage in that first game. They looked a little better on your rink, but it still didn't matter. I think the only thing they have going for them is that Wilkie is out, Trudell is out, so they don't have to worry about getting gooned up down the ice by Tristel. What would they call him? Strudel.
Yeah.
And Wilkie's leadership on defense. But I don't know that matters that much. I don't see Quad Cities winning one single game in this one. I would be shocked if they put more than 2 goals up on you guys in any of the games. The rest of the league, we all hope Quad Cities wins and slays the dragon and makes this a fun playoffs, but not first round. Peoria's not going out in the first round. They're going to move on rather quickly. I think if you were to ask me which team had the best chance of sweeping, it's Peoria. Everybody would probably pretty much agree. I mean, you guys looked good all year long. Quad Cities and you guys don't mix well because Quad Cities comes in and tries to be like you. They try to push you around, try to bully you, and they tire themselves out, especially in your rink. I know they had that conference championship game with you guys a couple years ago, and they looked really good in game 1, and then they choked the last 2 games. So And I thought that was a lot better team that year than this year. So um, I think the keys to your game that you always like to do is it's not, but you get in Moran's head and it's over. And he just falls apart, and they really only have Leaf is pretty much the only threat on that team, and Peoria's real good about isolating the one guy. I mean, unless they're going to spread the puck around, but they had plenty of chances without Leaf last weekend to see who would be the next guy to step up, and they scored 3 goals on you in the 2 games. So, I mean, it's good to see them make the playoffs. First year head coach, it's great. It's a good thing to build on. Next year maybe they get some more players up in there, but it ain't happening this year.
Yeah. I appreciate that, the honesty and the confidence there. I mean, like I said, maybe it is a superstition thing with me. Um, it's I want to say what you just said, but it's just like there's always a part in the back of your mind that's just like, well, what if somehow? But like what you said, now what you said should be the result. It absolutely should be the result. Everything said. I mean, what we talked about with Havoc and Thunderbolts, you look up and down the lineup with roster depth, scoring depth, and all that stuff, goaltending. Again, Colby Muse is a goalie of the year candidate. Alec Bear, an MVP candidate. Coached by one of the best coaches to coach in this league. He will have his team ready. They will not underestimate or look past the storm. Um, they're there to take care of business, and I have full faith that they will, and they will move on. Um, we'll touch on these other teams real quick. Now we got an interesting matchup and another rival matchup. You got number 6 Knoxville going up against number 3 Dogs. It's a pretty interesting matchup. You got 2 very capable goalies. I'm a big fan of Muddinger. When he's locked in and on, he's pretty hard to put a puck by and looks big at net. When Austin Rodebush is on, he can be a threat too. But just like Muddinger, when Rodebush ain't on his game, he looks pedestrian fast, and you can get pucks by him. So, I think team defense, it always matters a little bit more in the playoffs, but it really matters in this series. I do see the Dogs taking this series. They tend to win those gritty series, close series. They're never really out of it, and they typically have Knoxville's number. I think they're a little more deep than Knoxville too. Have a little more threats, and yeah, I can see Dogs pushing past Knoxville. What are your thoughts on this matchup coming up?
So it's kind of a conflicting thoughts. I think this is going to be your best series. I think it's the most evenly matched series. It's the one I'm kind of excited to see. I was hoping it was going to play out this way because they are rivals. I think the teams are competitive. I think Knoxville's better with Soper not playing game 1 because he's a head case. And in the playoffs, you don't want to lose that momentum by somebody being a head case. I know the fans love him, but Peoria fans like goons too, and so I mean Knoxville's just kind of a hypocrite for bashing the Rivermen and then turn around and liking that douche. But yeah, sorry, he looks like a crack addict. He just looks terrible out there. I can't stand that guy more than anything. I I think it's going to be a sweep, but I don't think it's going to feel like a sweep. I think they're going to be 1-goal finishes. I think both teams are going to play very evenly. Are going to be evenly. I think Roanoke moves on. I think the games are more like a 4-3, 3-2 finishes. I just think Rhodey has got more of it in him. Dinger's already announced this is his last year. Anytime you announce that you're a farewell tour, there's always that, hey, this could be my last game in the back of your head. Sometimes that works out in your advantage. Sometimes that plays a downplay, and the team starts, backing up, thinking, oh man, we have to win this for him. They're not paying attention to the actual goal. I do think overall, Roanoke's the more hot team coming into this matchup. I mean, they dang near climbed up to first place. If that wasn't for the last 2 weeks where they started to really show signs of the beginning of the season and get swept out of weekends and stuff like that, they could have overtaken second for sure. Um, but I think come playoff time, they've got the home ice advantage. I think we're going to see Havoc and Dogs in the second round. Um, is that the matchup I want to see? If I want to claim to be the best team to win the championship, yes, I want to go through Roanoke. I mean, they beat us in 22 on our home ice, swept us. We beat them last year on their home ice in a three game series. I want to see the rubber match. Even if we lose, at least we lose to a worthy opponent. We lose to a team that is coming off of a fairly recent championship. That would be sending them to another championship, and I think they would probably hopefully feel the same way. Um, Knoxville, I wouldn't mind seeing them, so we didn't have to play Roanoke. The easy path to the championship is always the fan friendly one. But then that means that Peoria gets another easy opponent again, and I'd rather see them play a top seed for once in the playoffs. And either they put those to bed, those doubters to bed on that, or they don't, and we see what happens from there. But I definitely think Roanoke wins the series 2-0.
Yeah. I could definitely see that. And it's going to be a physical series with Knoxville, too. It's going to be a physically and mentally taxing series, which I do think could play in Havoc's advantage in a way because it's going to be the same result if those two face off. That's going to be a mentally and physically taxing series because that's just the type of game, Dogs bring to the table, kind of similar to Peoria. And they got an ex-Riverman as their head coach, so where he learned from. So it's they kind of bring that grittiness to their game, which I do respect. Uh, I think it's going to be a tough hill to climb for Knoxville to get over that. I could see a sweep, maybe be a nice Knoxville gets a win in Knoxville, but like you said, I could for sure see a sweep happening.
I can see it going 3. I'm more on the majority side of it being a sweep. I mean, it starts off in Roanoke. Um, I think you get a good win there in that Ruckus building, and then it's a 1 game series at that point for Roanoke. I wouldn't be like, oh my god, I'm shocked, because like I said, I think this is going to be the best series. I think it'll be a sweep, but I think it's still going to play get in a year or two that, oh wow, that was a sweep. You're going to feel like it went 3 games. I'm not trying to take anything away from Knoxville and their fans. I think the team's good. I just think it's going to be a 1 goal game. It's going to be one of those ones where home ice played into the advantage of Roanoke in game 1, and one mistake played against Knoxville in game 2. I feel like that's just what it's going to be. Both teams are going to be solid. They're not going to make too many mistakes. That's why I think I'm more excited about that one than anything. I think Knoxville kind of laid back last week. I don't think they wanted to show Roanoke everything, because in case they were playing them, you don't want to give them that recent history of, hey, this and this is that. Um, and like you said, both goaltenders, we've seen them shine to where they're brick walls, and we've seen them smell like shit. So, I mean, that's just, I think Rowdy's playing season this year than he did last year. So there's that going into it. I mean, they did win 2 games in the end of the year. I mean, that's how a streak starts.
All right.
So my money's on Roanoke.
Yeah. And for the record, I'm kind of going for a Roanoke versus Havoc matchup because I would if the Rivermen go to the finals, I want that final matchup to be a rematch with Havoc or even a rematch with the Dogs in the finals. So that's a matchup I am hoping for as well. Before I move on, I wanted to say that real quick. But that brings us to our last first round game, which I find very interesting. To me, this is the most interesting game because this can go, a couple of different ways, in my opinion, all plausible and everything. Um, you could see the Bulls sweeping Marksman. I won't argue that at all. But in a weird way, you could see Marksman might pull an upset and get by the Bulls. I mean, They do have some good players on that team, and when Ryan Kinney is on, he can be a formidable goalie. I've seen him make some bonehead mistakes at net, don't get me wrong. But, we have seen Ryan Kinney shine as well. As a Rivermen fan looking perspective, I would like to see the Bulls again. I like that challenge. I like to see the challenge and Rivermen rise up to it. Some Rivermen to see Marksmen just because of Ryan Nolan and Caden Cahill play for Marksmen, and so they would like to see them again in the playoffs, and ultimately send them home as well. But like I've stated at the beginning, the big right of things you look to see who has an edge over who. You just kind of have to put more check marks by the Bulls than you do Marksmen. I think they're deeper at goalie. Like, if you were to ask me who you're going to take, Austin Lotz or Ryan Kinney, I take Austin Lotz all day. Offense, I think there's a little bit more scoring depth with the Bulls, and I think they're a little bit more consistent. Same with team defense. Coaching's about even. Um, like I said, Bulls are playing hot right now. You could argue Bulls are the hottest team playing right now, which certainly helps, and having home ice helps. This first game matters. It's in Fayetteville. If Fayetteville loses this game in Fayetteville, they're getting swept. That's my opinion. They have to win in Fayetteville. What gives them a chance, obviously, is winning their home game before moving on to the Bulls. But like I said, I could also see the Bulls winning 2 games in a row at home as well, even if Fayetteville wins. So it's a tough hill to climb for Fayetteville. Like I said, if there's an upset in the first round, I do see it being Fayetteville, but my money will still be on the Bulls. They're playing great hockey right now, a little more deep, better goaltending. Yeah, for my money, just kind of like I said, it's a no upset first round, no upsets. I think the top 4 teams will move on to the second round, and that's when shit gets real and real competitive, and you just kind of toss your hands up and be like, anything could happen. Literally anything could happen. Any one of these teams could be in the finals. There's not a for sure thing. So why don't you give us your thoughts here on the Bulls and Marksman matchup? Tell me what you think.
I think this is the only series that's for sure 3-game series. I even if Bulls win game 1 in Fayetteville, I still think Fayetteville beat the Bulls in game 2. Um, Bulls aren't as tough at home as you think they are versus what other teams are tough at home. I know the Bull fans will get on there. Oh, we beat the Havoc 6 games. Yeah, we beat you 3, and 2 of them were in your barn. So it's not like home ice advantage works well for them. They don't have fans that show up to that barn. When the Havoc play down there, we fill half their seats. Um, they don't have the same home ice that most teams do. Um, that being said, if Fayetteville wins game 1, I think the Bulls still take the series with both games at home. I hate to pick that way. What Kyle Sharkey has done down there in Fayetteville this year, I think even though they're in a 1 spot lower seed than they were last year, I think he did an amazing job in his first year there. Anytime you get a new coach, you got some transition going on. It's always, like how far are they going to fall? Where are they going to go? They started off the season really well. They fell back, really had a chance to get up to that 4th seed, but didn't play out that way for them. And they did everything they could, though. You forget they're coming in hot too. They won their last 2 games of the season, and they played Pensacola, I know, but the Bulls come in and saying they're hot, they're winning all these games, but they damn near choked away a huge lead against the Havoc on Thursday, the week prior to the end of the year, and then it took everything in them to beat Evansville. So, we're talking about the 7 seed, and they barely squeaked by them in both games. So, I do think this series is the toss-up, and I wouldn't be shocked if Fayetteville wins it. They're going to obviously have to win one in Birmingham. So if they win that first game, I think they can win one of the two games in Birmingham. But like you said, even if Birmingham loses, they could still take the two in Birmingham. I've got the Bulls moving on. I think they are more of a together team. These guys have played together for a while. Austin Lotz, when he's on, he's a brick wall. Um, but Fayetteville's got the addition of Caden Cahill. He's a proven champion. He's that dark horse that nobody has seen Fayetteville play with, let alone a playoff run. If I am a Peoria fan, I'm praying the Bulls beat them. I wouldn't want Caden Cahill coming to play us after we traded him away and knowing all our secrets, knowing how the players play, knowing how the coach calls close games, what he's going to do in the final close minutes, and come back to burn me, and then we get beat by a 5 seed. If I'm Peoria, I'm praying Birmingham wins, or I'm praying Knoxville wins, because that way we don't have to see either the hot Bulls or the Fayetteville, the return of Caden Cahill. So that being said, you said Nolan's there too. So that's a couple different ones. And obviously Sharkey raised a championship inside that arena too. Throwing that out there. But that being said, I do think the Bulls win this one. I think the games aren't going to be as close finishes as that Roanoke Knoxville game, but I think this one goes 3. I think you get Fayetteville game 1. I think the Bulls take games 2 and 3.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I could see it going that way. We all know how much I love and respect Caden Cahill. He was one of my favorite Rivermen when he was on the team. He is 1,000% my fiance's favorite player, still is. Even though he's no longer a Riverman, my fiance loves Caden and roots for him every chance she gets. My kids loved him. I mean, he's just a really down-to-earth, chill guy. I mean, I can't say enough good things about him. That's why it's kind of bittersweet. I wouldn't mind seeing Cahill again, meeting up with him in the playoffs. But like you said, that can also come back to bite us as well. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. I think Rivermen are good enough to take on any of these 7 teams, other teams that are in this postseason, and win. There's a little extra motivation behind Marksman too, and we swept Marksman in the season series. I just think there's a little extra motivation behind them. But you could say the same about the Bulls because we swept them as well. They're a different team now. Like I said, they're playing better. Same with Marksman. They're a different team. They're playing better. It's the playoffs. You can erase all of that. But, like I said, the way Riverman's playing, I think they match up well against anybody, any other of these 7 teams, 100%. So, yeah, that's the way I see it. And then if that's the way it works out, then you got number 1 seed Rivermen going against number 4 seed Bulls. You got the number 3 seed Dogs going up against the number 2 seed Havoc. Like I said, that's where the fun begins. Obviously, in my bracket, I got the finals rematch between Havoc and Rivermen. And ultimately, I got the Rivermen going back to back for that. I'd probably do another video most likely with you when it comes to the second round and all that. But I like I said, I could see the Havoc getting past the Dogs again. I think in round 2, if these top 4 teams make it, it's obviously going all 3 games with these teams. There's no sweeps. Either way, there's no sweeps. It's going 3 games, and it's going to be taxing. No matter who moves on for the 4 teams, they are going to be physically and mentally exhausted when they get to that finals matchup. It's a matter of who wants it more, who's got more in the gas tank, who's more deep. Secondary scoring is going to be important. You can't just lean on your top 1 or 2 or 3 stars. And goalies are really going to have to shine. So it's going to be an interesting second round leading up to the finals. So we're kind of nearing this video, so I'll kind of give you the floor for your final thoughts leading into this second round with the 4-team matchup, and what you got in mind for that.
So 2022, the Havoc, we set a personal best wins record. We won 41 games that year. It was the best in franchise history. Won 84 points. We swept through the Thunderbolts in the first round and got swept by the Dogs in the second round. Close games, but we got beat. They went on to lose to Peoria, giving Peoria their first championship. Lo and behold, this year comes along and we win the second most games in franchise history. We take the second most points in franchise history. We wind up as the 2 seed again, playing the Thunderbolts out of the 7 seed again. There's a really good chance we wind up with the Rail Yard Dogs in the second round again. So I think this is a redemption year. I do think that there's no stopping Peoria. They're going to the finals. So rather than 22, when we should have played you guys in the finals, we're going to hopefully take it back again this year and get a redo of 22 here in 25 and beat the Dogs and get Peoria again in the finals. Which I kind of hoping for that because we got you in what was that 2018,
18 or 19, one of the two.
I think it was 18. 19 we beat the Bulls, and then 20 was the year that got canceled.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So and then you guys got us last year, so it's a 1-1 and something that could squeak out of this, and even going into next year too. Maybe the Bulls Rivermen is that championship rivalry that just spurred out of nowhere. I don't know. I have to go back and look and see has anybody else played each other more than twice in the championships and stuff like that. So I mean that might be something that kind of underlines it to where it's like, okay, we might lose 2 or you might lose 2 series to us, but that's still what a run that both those teams come out and they were the toughest teams. The whole Islanders and Oilers or Bruins and Oilers rivalry from the 80s and stuff like that. But there's always that one upset. Last year we did not expect the number 1 seed to go down. Probably anybody outside of Huntsville did not expect the Havoc to beat the Marksmen. I mean, they had a really great season last year. Just had a lot of injuries going right into the playoffs. And then second round, who would have thought that the Havoc come out of the 5 seed could beat the 3 seed Dogs, and get into the finals, and then who thought that the Havoc could beat the Rivermen in a game that was the only game that the Rivermen lost that season. So there's always something. You go back to the 22 season, the Knoxville Ice Bears, I think, didn't they set a record for wins in the league that year, and they got beat by Rail Yard Dogs in the first round. I think the Rail Yard Dogs upset Peoria in the 2019 playoffs in the first round after Peoria won the President's Cup. So there's always that upset. That's the thing is I got Roanoke in a sweep, but that upset could be Knoxville. That's the one I could see being, wow, that was the upset no one predicted, or it was the shocker that changed the whole layout of the playoffs. Because regardless if Fayetteville wins, that one of those two is still playing Peoria in the first round. It's not really an upset. Right. Even Evansville, pulls it off. It would be Christmas morning if Quad Cities pulled it off. I just don't see it doing it. I think Gavin posted something a few months back that said the only thing you can count on is Quad Cities losing in Peoria, and that's the most truest statement ever. That Quad Cities can't play in Peoria, and they have to win at least one game in Peoria, and that's if they win game 1 at home, or game 2. I guess game 2 is at home. So I just don't see it happening, but it'd be interesting to see, will there be an upset, or will this go as the top 4, and will it go to the top 2 going into it? That's going to be the thing. I am glad that if we get the Rail Yard Dogs in the second round, we have home ice this time. I think that is the advantage that kind of evens the playing field, because we haven't looked good in their this year. We haven't really looked good against them. I think they own the season series on us. So it's good to have that advantage of, okay, at least we get 2 games at home, all that stuff. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I guess we'll see you in round 2.
Yeah, I concur. Like I said, like what you said, anything can happen in the first round. Of course, upsets happen. They're harder to predict. That's why they're called upsets. They're a little tougher to predict. It's realistic. It can happen, but is it probable? Probably not. Like what you said, Knoxville or Marksman are the two most likely. I don't see how Thunderbolts and Storm get by their opponents. It's just very unlikely. Um, the bottom line is the way this is shipping up, the way they finished 1-2. It does line up if everything if the teams play the way they're supposed to. Riverman and Havoc play the games they're capable of and the way it's supposed to go. It is extremely likely they meet up in the finals again, and that's 1-2. And to me, that's an awesome story. Not only a rematch of the finals, but they finished 1-2. Havoc got a chance at redemption, raising a cup because Peoria raised a cup in their face last year, and have a chance to go back to back for the first time in franchise history in any league. And some veterans can walk away with 3 rings on the Rivermen, and that's a hell of a legacy to leave. So obviously, these teams have plenty of motivation and plenty of talent to make that cup run and meet up in the finals. And the ball's in anyone's court. Once you get there, it's anyone's game to win, you know?
The other thing you're not thinking of too, Rivermen very easily could be going for a three-peat this year if it wasn't for the Rail Yard Dogs. And there's a
Yeah.
very good chance the Rail Yard Dogs could shut them down again and keep them from going back to back. I mean, I guess this would be the 4th straight. They could be going for a four-peat right now if not for the Dogs in that 23 season. Um,
Yeah. They played
so,
spoilers 100% on
and if
that.
there's a team I think could play very tough hockey for you guys in your barn, that's Rail Yard Dogs. So the fact that you're going to get a very tough 2 and a very tough 3 in that championship, it's not going to be like last year where it's like, oh, you're getting the 5 seed. And they're a young bunch of kids that just don't know how to lose. Well, they can still lose. They just may not know how to do it. And that proved, in that last game, they looked overmatched and they looked tired um, and worn out. I don't think that'll be the case this year. I think these guys can play. There's some things I think the Havoc need to work on if they're going to beat the Rivermen. But I think the Railroad Dogs they could beat us and they could play spoiler and it could go, Rivermen, Railroad Dogs, Rivermen, Railroad Dogs, in the history of it. So, which would be like I talked about the Rivermen and the Havoc. That could be the other rivalry matchup is that the Railroad Dogs stopped Rivermen from being that dynasty that all the fans dreamed of and all that stuff and that animosity, and then maybe they start playing more during the season and stuff like that because of that rivalry. So there's a lot that can really happen in the finals this year. I don't think you're going to get a team. You're not going to get that 8 seed Railroad Dog sliding in. You're not going to get that 5 seed Havoc sliding in. Much like the 23 season where it came down to the 2-4 seed, but Railroad Dogs weren't playing like a 4 seed that year. So I do think that that it's going to be a 1 versus 2 or 1 versus 3 this year. I don't think you're going to get a 2-4 or a 3-4 in that finals. So,
I
which
would agree with that. Yep.
I know the Railroad Dogs finished 4 points behind us, but like I said, if they hadn't fumbled 2 weeks prior, they could have been the number 2 seed as well. They played as well as the number 2 seed. I have a lot of respect for that team. No animosity, no shit talking them or downing them because they really came on strong in that middle part of the season. And if it wasn't for the Rivermen and Havoc playing equally as well as them, they'd have blown right past both of us. So, if you look at the standings last year, the Havoc won, I think, 35 games last year and finishes the 5 seed. They won 36 this year and they're the 2 seed. So, that shows you how difference the standings make and how close those teams were as far as wins and all that stuff. You guys finished obviously a few games ahead of us in wins. But, you go one game, we won one more game than we did last year and finished 3 seeds higher. So that shows you the competitiveness of everybody was beating everybody this year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I agree with you. Well, guess we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up then, and I look forward to the second round. Hopefully, you'll join me again when this first round's over, and then we can go into more detail about these second round matchups. Um, and, like I said, we might end up getting a rematch after all. We'll just have to see how that all shakes out and how we do in this first round. So, with that, I thank you for being with me and talking with me about this first round and sharing your thoughts and opinions. It's very much appreciated. And thanks everybody who's watching the video. That's also very appreciated. And
including you, Chris. We know you stayed on to watch this.
exactly. Didn't want to be in my video. I'm not a video guy. Whatever.
He couldn't find a shirt without sleeves.
But thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you at the next pep drop. And you know me, I always keep it Riverman style.